To understand Sago, you have to understand seals. In coal mines, seals are walls built to close off abandoned sections, and their job is simple: trap dangerous gas, keep it away from miners, and stop explosions from spreading. At Sago, those abandoned areas were sealed with Omega block seals, not concrete. They were legal, they were approved, and they were rated to withstand 20 pounds per square inch. Now, that matters because investigators later determined that the explosion behind those seals likely produced 5 times that pressure. So here's what federal investigators said happened. Methane built up behind the seals in an abandoned section of the mine. A lightning strike during a storm that morning likely sent an electrical charge through the ground, and that ignited that gas. So the explosion didn't happen where the miners were working, it happened behind the seals. And those seals failed catastrophically. Blocks were blown apart. Debris was hurled into active workings. Ventilation pressure collapsed. So that failure allowed carbon monoxide to flood the mine. But the miners' union did not accept that lightning alone was the cause. The United Mine Workers of America conducted its own investigation and said the disaster was foreseeable and it was preventable. The result of weak seals, standards, methane control failures, and rules that prioritized compliance over safety. Their conclusion was blunt. Lightning may have been the trigger, but unsafe working conditions were the cause. MSHA's most important conclusion wasn't about lightning anyway. It was this: the seals were built to federal standards, but the standards were dangerously inadequate. In other words, the mine followed the rules just weren't safe. After Sago, union leaders went to Charleston. They pressed lawmakers, they demanded change, not more explanations. And change followed. Seal requirements were raised from 20 psi to at least 50 psi, and in many cases and in many mines, 120 psi or more. Concrete seals became the standard. Methane monitoring behind seals was strengthened. Emergency communication and mine rescue rules were tightened at both state and federal levels. But for the men at Sago, those changes came too late. They weren't killed by fire, they weren't killed instantly. They were killed by inadequate safety standards, engineering assumptions, and gas that should never have reached them. Sago wasn't a freak accident. It wasn't an act of God. It was a warning, paid for the same way coal mine safety reforms always are, with the lives of West Virginia coal miners.